Count on that. Now, we are here to discuss something that both the Attorney General and I are going to be pursuing in conjunction, hopefully, with the Trump administration, and that involves the count of Florida in the most recent census. I think most people know we were undercounted in that census. In fact, I remember when the first Trump administration was leaving office in January of 2021, I spoke with people at the Commerce Department, and they said Florida's going to get 2 additional seats in Congress as a result of that census, which was basically the 2010 through 2020 population growth. Turns out, new administration takes office, we end up getting 1 seat, state of Florida. Oregon got 1. I think Colorado, it's like we got the same as Oregon over that period of time. And even the Biden administration a couple years later said that there was undercount in Florida, that Florida should have gotten at least 1 more seat in Congress, and that some of these other states, and look, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but every state that got shortchanged was a Republican state, and every state that got more was a Democrat state. That's just the truth about how that census was applied. So, you think about it, and I know there's different issues involving the census even apart from that, but the census that was done, and it started under Trump administration, but it was processed and the results were promulgated under Biden. Just with that, if we just take that and applied it properly, Florida would have at least 1 more seat. That's just the truth. So the Attorney General has written a letter to the Census Bureau, the Commerce Department, copying the White House, saying, please fix this remuneration and award Florida what we're entitled to, an extra seat in Congress. And if we get that, that's not only an extra seat in the House of Representatives, we have 28 now, that would also mean an additional vote in the Electoral College when it comes to presidential elections. And so we should have had that in 2024, and 22 for Congress, 24 for both Congress and the Electoral College, and we want this fixed now. We think it's really something that's important. So if that relief is given, then that would obviously force the Florida legislature to have to redraw the maps that we have for U.S. House of Representatives, because we have 28 districts currently. We would presumably have 29. I've had some people tell me they think we'd have 30, but I think 29. So you would have to do that. But that would need to be done, likely within the next 3 to 6 months, so that we have enough time to be able to get that done. But we are going to press this issue. Attorney General told me he's going to be willing to go up to Washington and talk to people in the Commerce Department to be able to get this right. I know President Trump has spoken about the need to fix the problems with the census. And let me also say that there's the issue, which I think is important, about, okay, you count people, and then you've got people, especially in like California, who are illegally in the country. Should you be rewarded for that and more seats in Congress because you're a sanctuary jurisdiction? I don't think so. I don't think it's right. So, you count who's ever present, but then when you do congressional apportionment, that should be based on people who are lawfully present in the country. And then if you did that, that would also necessitate different results than what we've had in recent years. And so we're totally supportive of dealing with the issue of not having illegal aliens counted for the purpose of apportionment. That benefits California, it benefits Illinois, New York in ways that it really shouldn't, but that's how it's been done. So we're definitely supportive of that. But you don't even need to do that to give us the extra seat that we should have had starting in the 2022 election. So that's the first thing, and we're going to keep on this. We're going to work with Commerce. I had spoken with folks back in the day when this happened. I was like, can we sue over this? And they're like, well, we don't really, how do you get in? And we didn't know what the basis would be. We knew we were entitled, but you got to prove it. You got to have the legal theory, all this stuff. And we were not going to get any help at the time, of course, from the Biden administration. Well, now Biden administration has since had to acknowledge that there was an undercount, and I know the Trump administration is of the same mind. So we're in a position now where I think we may be able to get positive relief. The other issue that is going to be significant, that's going to have a bearing on Florida's congressional districts, is the idea of race-based districts. So the U.S. Supreme Court has accepted a case. It's going to be argued in October, basically asking the question about whether is it appropriate to use race when you're drawing districts. So the current iteration of the Voting Rights Act has been interpreted to mean that if you have a majority-minority district, that district has to be kept into a similar configuration such that the majority can elect a candidate of their choice, which basically, it doesn't necessarily mean, if that district elected a Republican, they would say that that's a bad district. It basically means that district has to elect a Democrat. That's the way this has been interpreted over the years. We have at least one in our congressional map that is configured strangely to be able to comply with that interpretation of the Voting Rights Act. People are now bringing a challenge saying, you know what, Voting Rights Act means you show up to vote. If you're a lawful citizen, you get to vote. They can't play games with you. They can't make one person go in with nothing, and then someone, because they're a different color, have to be able to recite the Odyssey from memory. Otherwise, they fail the literacy test. All that stuff is done. Like, that is not something that's appropriate. But that's an individual's voter's right to go in and cast a vote if you're a citizen of this country, and that obviously should apply regardless of race. But are we saying that you have to draw these strange districts to be able to manufacture a certain number of folks of certain race or not race in one district? That is using race to draw the districts in ways that I think some people, I do, interpret the 14th Amendment to not allow. So that is going to be a huge issue in front of the Supreme Court. I think because they're hearing it this early in the session, that they likely are going to render a decision on this perhaps by the end of the year, the beginning of next year. Our primary is a year away, so we have time to be able to digest those changes. But if that decision were to come down and to say that those districts are problematic, Florida would be forced with that as well, even if we didn't get the extra seat, to go in and do a new map. And as you remember, well, some may remember, I had to veto the Florida Republican legislature. I had to veto their map last time because they drew this 200-mile district from Tallahassee to Jacksonville, this little squiggly district across the northern tip of Florida, and it was purely to manufacture a certain racial composition. It was not a VRA district, though. This was them doing that apart from that. And I said, that's not constitutional. Like, regardless, however you think the VRA should be interpreted, if it's a VRA district, federal law, fine, you deal with that. But this was not. No one was even claiming it was. And so I said, I'm not going to sign that. And we vetoed the map. We had to fight them on other stuff, but we got a map in. And it ended up going to federal court and the Florida Supreme Court, and it's been upheld every time people have sued over it because we knew we were right. But that was a really important decision to be able to do that. So we've done that. Here, this could be something that would require us to do even more, and we're going to be ready and willing and able to do it. Now, apart from what happens with the Commerce Department and the Census Bureau, apart from what happens with the U.S. Supreme Court and how they interpret Section 2 of the VRA, we do have a situation in Florida where, based on the recent Florida Supreme Court decision, there may be things in the map that we are going to have to, well, the legislature would have to address. We're going through it. I know people are looking at it, but there's definitely some decisions that were made by the legislature last time, particularly in southern Florida, that may not comport with the court's recent decision upholding the northern part of Florida with the part of the map that was challenged. So that obviously is a basis to go in and do this thing fresh. And the other thing I would point out is, if you look at when this census was completed, the counting, I think, stopped in April of 2020. I mean, just think about what it was like in Palm Beach then compared to now. I mean, like you've had Florida has been the place where people have escaped to from all. And just keep in mind, I'm not recruiting people to move here. I'm not. Some governors will go around the country, please move to our state, please. I'm not doing that because honestly, we've got a lot of people. We've got great people. I figured out like during COVID, like I didn't need to go on these trips to recruit, businesses from New York. They were calling me, asking me to come down. Like, you guys can come if you want. It was fine. So I'm not one of those guys that's like begging people, to move here at all. Because I understand, like, look, there's some benefits to that. I mean, some of the people who have moved in this area, have good income. They don't really use services. They contribute and all that stuff. So I'm not saying it's bad, but there obviously is challenges with traffic. There's challenges with building new schools and all this stuff. So the bottom line is, we just try to do a good job. People can vote with their feet how they want to. And the reality is, since that April of 2020, Florida has been the #1 state that people have sought to move to in the entire United States of America. And so when I got elected governor, I think we had about 21 million people. Now we're almost 23.5 million people in the state of Florida. But our current congressional districts are reflective of that reality from 2019, the beginning of 2020. So you have some districts that have not reflected the population change that's happened. So some districts you have a lot of votes, some you don't have as much votes. And so that is another basis to go back in and look and say, okay, we want equal representation. These districts should be the same. A congressman in some parts of Florida can get elected with like a fraction of the votes that some of these congressmen, are getting 250,000 votes. Some of the others are getting like less than 200,000 votes. And I'm thinking to myself, like, that's odd when you have that. And it's not just, there's overall way more votes in some districts than the others. So we've seen that. And part of it is because what's happened in Florida has really been unprecedented. We've had really significant growth and migration, and our congressional map should reflect that. So this is something that we are going to have to address as a state. I've spoken with some folks in the Florida legislature, and I think that there's broad acknowledgement that this is something that is going to have to happen. We do have some things that will happen between now and the spring that will inform exactly how we're supposed to do this, particularly if we get another seat or if the Supreme Court says that the racial-based districts are unconstitutional. That we would have no choice as a state but to go in and do a new congressional map. But this is something that's kind of stuck in my craw for a number of years, because I remember telling everybody we were going to get 2 seats in the last census. And then when they came out with it, we only got 1, and I was looking around, and I'm like, they told me Rhode Island was going to lose a seat, and we were going to get 2. And then Biden comes in. Who's the Commerce Secretary overseeing the census? Former governor of Rhode Island. Did Rhode Island lose a seat? No. Did Florida get 2? No, we only got 1. So there's all these questions, and so I've been frustrated with it. We were not going to get anywhere, I think, under the Biden administration. And I know the president has personally spoken about the need to get the census right. So we have an opportunity to do that and to basically give Floridians what they're entitled to, which is fair representation. So I want to thank the Attorney General for taking the lead on this and working with the Trump administration. This is time sensitive, though. I mean, Florida, we have more time than most because our primary is not for about a year away. And we have filing that probably can get pushed to June for congressional if we need to, like the state offices. So we do have some time, but it's certainly if they're going to go back and fix the census, I mean, that would be something that they would need to act on